富、名声、力、この世の全てを手に入れた男、海賊王ゴールド・ロジャー。彼の死に際に放った一言は人々を海へ駆り立てた。
俺の財宝か？欲しけりゃくれてやる。探せ、この世の全てをそこに置いてきた。
男たちはグランドラインを目指し夢を追い続ける。世はまさに大海賊時代。
irritatingの夢をかき集め、探し物を探しに行くのさ。onepiece。羅針盤なんて渋滞のもと、夏に生かされ舵を取るのさ。誇りかぶってた宝の地図も確かまたのなら伝説じゃない。個人的な主は誰かのバイオリズムの過程思い過ごせばいい。irritatingの夢をかき集め、探し物を探しに行くのさ。ポケットのコイン、So that's who you wanna be, my friend. We are on the cruise. We are.
It is time for the end of a very special sequence of episodes here on the Pirate Odyssey, where we talk about the live-action One Piece, which is a existential nightmare that I have been living, waking, alive for the past several months. Finally, it can be over. And then we can move on to the actual series once again. Or rather, to the movies. So,
God.
We're finally talking about the 8th episode of the Pirate Odyssey. We're finally talking about the 8th episode of the live-action adaptation of One Piece here on the Pirate Odyssey. Do you have any initial thoughts for this episode, CamCam?
I would say it's one of the better episodes, just because it looks nicer, like it's filmed nicer. And I just looked in, I just like pictured it in the context of like, it's not One Piece, it's just its own thing, because I have to do that for survival purposes. So yeah.
I mean, it does have a lot more action in it, and when it has a lot more action, that distracts from the poor quality of the writing, so you no longer have to lose your mind over the bad writing. They can replace the bad writing with, like, okay action choreography, so it doesn't come across as problematic.
Yeah, the action, like, the choreography was, like, it was okay. It was just, like, it felt like watching the same battle, like, again, over and over again, because, like, because we see the action, like, in the other episodes, and I was like, oh, I'm, like, seeing the same thing again, I feel like. I don't know.
So, starting off in this episode, we get, I think our last flashback to Nami's childhood, of her drawing a map as a child, and she pricks herself with her pen, and she spills a drop of blood on the map, and my thought was, ordinarily, you would have to, like, start over if you do that, because now you've got, like, a blood smear on your map, and you can't, like, write over that or get rid of it. It's, like, permanent, and they don't exactly have whiteout or advanced paper technologies, and she just... and she doesn't do that, so she just now has a map in Arlong's room which permanently has her DNA on it.
Well, at least, like, back in biblical times, they had ways to kind of, like, white out, text that they missed up on, so...
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, maybe Nami did that, who knows?
Yeah, sure. I just want to start off with something silly, okay?
and then here's me ruining it. Well, technically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say I did like that scene, and especially with like her like I did like that they showed her getting the tattoo. That's like a very traumatic, like we see it's a very traumatic experience for her whenever she like stabs her arm, because it's a representation of Arlong and she's so frustrated. And so here she is as a child getting a tattoo branding herself, and linking herself to him almost permanently, permanent like stain on her body. So I did like that they showed that, and then they showed her in shackles with her ankle bruised. So it did show like the brutality of it and what she experienced. So I did like that. I thought that was a good choice.
Yeah. The thing I next had to comment on is actually in the present when the whole of the Straw Hats go over to the village that was just attacked at the end of the previous episode at night, except it's day now.
Yeah. Odd.
It's,
Okay.
it's odd. Also the timing of the attack was odd. All of it is just odd. It's odd.
What is time in One Piece?
I see. I ask that question for the series, like in actuality, sometimes, but that's in the scope of like how long it takes for them to go from like island to island, and like the overall length of the series, and like what is the time scale of that. In a couple arcs, like Alabasta is a little bit of like, did this really happen over the course of like a couple of days? The amount of traveling that they did.
Yeah, I thought it was like at least a month, and you were like, no, it's like a couple days.
Yeah, Alabasta was only like 2 or 3 days.
Wild, bro.
But it's so in that series, it's like a little weird, but it's not like necessarily a plot hole, and it's not that relevant, not that important, but it's just like weirdly obvious here, where at the end of the previous episode it was nighttime, it was dark, and then also and the village is being attacked, and the village is not that far away from Nami and Nojiko's house. Whether it be in the original series or even in the live action, it's not depicted as being that far, even if the tangerine orchard is relatively big. And yet by the time they get to the village, it's like, I guess it doesn't even seem like it's dawn. It looks closer to midday. I'm like, why?
Like, it's pretty sunny out, and I think they show like the sun like being like right up, like tippity top in the sky, super bright. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, is it like lunchtime?
It's bad. It's just rough.
Yeah, I don't know, like I don't just so it's just like a bad choice. Like they should have had the whole scene during the day, because like I said, it was just awkward having that part, in the last episode at night where it's dark, and you can't really see anything. And so I guess they thought the same thing, and we're like, okay, let's put it in the day. LOL.
Yeah. And
Oh, and okay, me first. Okay, so in the last episode, I forgot to mention that Bellemare, that in the anime and the manga, not Nami shows her like, ooh, like I want to make maps, and Bellemare is like so excited for her and like really proud of her, and like, yeah, you like go on and make maps, and like really encouraging her to do that, and kind of like fostering her love for making maps. And we don't see that in the live action, and that just really sucks. Like we don't, like I said, we don't get to see her personality. So I thought I'd mention that.
It's not really organic. Nami just kind of inherently wants to make maps in the live action, as if it's just an intrinsic characteristic of her, as opposed to something which arose organically from her upbringing and from Bellemare like encouraging her, as you said.
Yeah. So it was just, like I said, it was just like a really odd choice, and I missed that. But yeah, I thought I'd mention that real quick.
So they walk into the village that's like attacked, and it's got like really pathetic fires going on that Usopp like douses kind of with a bucket. Uh,
He was on it, man.
yeah. And the villagers are basically say, by the way, we like you now, Nami, now that we've heard like the story or whatever. And it
We're
just
sorry.
yeah, it just once again goes back to what you've said before about there being a total lack of community, where it's like in the previous episode they hated her for most if not all of it, and then like on the drop of a hat it's like, oh, we like you now, and there was no like organic evolution of even outside of the fact that it misrepresents what the series was originally going for. There's no organic evolution of their attitude towards Nami. It was just, I hate you, and then I like you. There's nothing in between.
Yeah, and let's go. Like it's just so much. What I really liked about in the anime, how they were always like kind of secretly on her side and like always kind of like watching her, and they kind of knew what was going on. I really like that because like Nami, she kind of felt so alone in this journey, and to find out that she had this really great support system this whole time, I really like that. It's kind of shows us that like sometimes we feel so alone, but really we have a lot of people in our life that are supporting us that we don't realize, and we don't get that here. It's just silly,
Yeah.
like you said. So
And then I'm still referring to him as Gen because I forgot to look up his name and I don't remember it. Genzo, thank you. And then Genzo gives a rousing speech to the villagers to gear them up to attack, and I noted that the extras like cheering was not very much gusto. It was pretty unenthusiastic.
look, they didn't actually want to fight the fishmen. Okay.
Yeah. And I replayed the scene a couple of times to make sure, and even did it slowly. And some of them are doing their job correctly, and they're doing it pretty enthusiastically, and other ones aren't. And so some of it I think is also like the framing of the scene and the way it's presented just makes it seem all that much more unenthusiastic. Like especially auditorily, it doesn't sound very aggressive, I guess. And then also when Nami like tells them off for they shouldn't want to start a fight, they just like spontaneously stop. Just there's no like scattered cheering into stopping like how a crowd organically reacts.
Yeah.
They just all stop at the same time.
Yeah, and it's especially when they were like like you would think it would be harder to stop them because this would be like kind of they would feel so bad that they treated Nami like crap this whole time, that they would feel like indebted to her, that they wouldn't like want to stop. And so they're just like, oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah, there's this dynamic that's missing here where it's regardless of the pleas of Nami, they go to fight anyways. And the only reason they stop is because first they're stopped at the gates sort of by force by Johnny and Yokozu. Yeah.
I don't remember.
Fuck. There's like a million characters in One Piece. I can't remember all of their names.
Sorry,
Yosaku, that's what it is. Johnny and Yosaku. Because they're sort of stopped by force at the gates by Johnny and Yosaku, kind of. And then the main reason why they don't participate in the conflict is because Luffy and the other three step in to then fight Arlong themselves, so they have no place in joining in.
Yeah.
Whereas in this case, they're told off verbally, and they just like don't do anything with that. They just stop. And very weak-willed.
Yeah, definitely. Like they have no backbone. and you would think they would, because Belmare comes from this village, and Belmare had a really big sense of justice,
Yeah.
And apparently these people don't.
So then Luffy and the rest of them talk about their capacity to be Arlong or whatever. And Usopp's like, oh, He doesn't even seem to have a weakness. He's bulletproof. And Zoro's like, every creature has a weakness. And Luffy's like, when I find that weakness, I won't hesitate. And I just have to say, cringe. There's no other word for it. This is cringe. It's embarrassing.
Yeah,
I just
he looked so handsome though when he said that, so I don't get it.
just like the writing is so cringe. Like it's so weird. Why is the writing in One Piece, whenever there is like a sort of clever solution to fighting an opponent, it's because that opponent has devil fruit powers, because there actually is like a sort of weakness strength dynamic going on when it comes to devil fruits. Like with Crocodile, when he touches any sort of water and not just seawater, the sand solidifies and you can actually hit him. But Arlong doesn't have a devil fruit. He's just like a conventional strong guy, and he's stronger in the water. So like the only strategy that you can have really is to fight him on land. And I mean, there's no even like representation or discussion of that, because they don't fight him in the water, like ever actually in the live action. They don't fight like any of the fishmen in the water, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah, that's what I wrote down. Yeah.
But even if that were the case, and Arlong had a weakness, and like the goal in the fight was to like find his weakness and exploit it, this is still cringe writing. Why I can't get around it. It's so weird. I don't understand why you would write it like this.
And even then, like Zoro would be the kind of person to be like, yeah, like let's go. I'm ready to fight. Like heck yeah, bro, let's go. You know that's kind of, I feel like that's kind of attitude he would normally have, but you know.
Furthermore, the Arlong pirates are kind of weak shit compared to the Straw Hats. I'm not gonna lie. The entire reason why Zoro even had a remotely hard time with Hachi is because he was severely wounded. The reason why Sanji had a hard time with what's-his-face, Kurobi, I think his name is, is because he had to like help Luffy underwater first. He had to get the guy out of the water, and when he actually like bothered to kick him hard, he won. I mean, to be fair, that's the same case in the live action. When he actually bothered to kick the guy hard, he won.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit more clever in the anime, because like he like hit him in the gills or like hit him in the neck.
Yeah, he
somehow.
breathed.
Yeah,
he breathed into his gills under the water, which would actually be the weakness, I suppose.
that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I thought that was really clever in the anime. But what I wrote down is like it'd probably be super hard to like have fights underwater and like film that, you know.
I mean,
so
sounds though other series haven't done it before. I can't name one off the top of my head, but I'm confident there's been fighting underwater in different live.
I mean, like Harry Potter, you know. Like,
yeah, actually true. In the fourth movie, they have entire
yeah.
underwater sequences.
Yeah. So maybe they were just like, oh, it's too hard. Let's just have like the same fights that we had in all the previous episodes, where like all the fishermen come and attack, and we just have like a battle royale, you know?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't need to put him underwater because they didn't have the plot device of Luffy being thrown into the water, stuck in the rock, which it is one of the things I will say about like the actual Arlong Park, a criticism that I have of it, is that a lot of the stuff revolving around the fight in particular can be a little bit like sort of tedious and contrived, the way the set pieces are set up and the way that things happen, but ultimately it like works and it's not that bad, and there's reason to do all of those things even if it's somewhat clunky in the way that it's done. But in here there's not a whole lot of reason to have the things happen that do.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Yeah.
It was. I felt like I had something else to say on that front, but I forgot it, so I'm just gonna move on. So they do the surprise attack on the Arlong Park like area, and it's the most pathetic surprise attack of all time. No fishermen get wounded. No
smoke bombs.
There's no aggression. They're not even real smoke bombs, because by the time they bust in through the door, which I'll get to in a moment, the smoke is already like cleared, so there was no point to the smoke. It was basically they basically
Which, like,
just
what?
yeah, they basically just threw a bunch of firecrackers on the ground to announce their presence, as though busting through the door wasn't already going to announce their presence. And
Yeah.
then and then furthermore, how did they even get the firecrackers on the ground like spread all around like that? Usopp is only capable of firing so many firecrackers at a time over the wall.
Yeah.
And they didn't like show how it all went about. It was just like they talk about fighting Arlong, and then I think there was a Garp scene in between here that I didn't write anything down for, but they talk about fighting Arlong, and then they go to Arlong Park, and it's just, and then the firecrackers happen, and it's just like there's no setup or real transition between the two.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was like Garp and like Nezumi. Is that
Yeah, it was
what
Garp and Nezumi, and I feel like I could say that this is bad on the front of like what they do with Nezumi, but I don't have anything substantive to say in that regard.
I don't either. I didn't even write anything down. Garp over it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They like Nezumi blames like Luffy like for the pirate attacks.
And they're like, it
And-
can't be Luffy, you're a fucking liar. What a Weasley little liar, dude.
and like Kobe, this is where Kobe kind of stands up, and Helmeppo I think also does it too, and he's like,
Yes.
no, Luffy couldn't have done this. I'm like, you've been saying that this whole time. I really don't feel you say this every time, every
Yeah.
episode, and so I really don't feel like emotional about it, you know.
That scene was
I don't
basically
care.
just a waste of time. It was just a waste of time.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't care, bro. Whatever.
Yeah. I suppose technically it was a necessary waste of time in respect to what the entirety of the live action is doing, because of how they're putting Garp into the story, and so you kind of need that like sort of connective tissue into why he is going from one place to another or what have you, but it's still a waste of time.
Sure.
Anyways, when they bust in through the door, I put bust in air quotes, because it doesn't look like they kick down or punch down the door at all. It looks like the door basically parts before them. And it just so happens that like the wooden block that was in barring it, I guess, was really weak or whatever, because it's just kind of snapped and then it's like it pushed outward, but it didn't look like any of them did anything to the door to cause it to push outward.
Yeah, they were just so strong that they just broke the board.
Yeah. And
It almost it just looked super fakey,
yeah, it looked very fake. It was bad.
But they looked cool walking through the door,
I guess.
That's what counts. They had their cute little entrance.
Yeah. So you have this like action sequence with all the Straw Hats fighting all the fishmen, and in the middle of it there's a Wilhelm scream, which totally like knocked me out of the scene when I first watched it. I was like, why'd you put a Wilhelm there?
Oh, that's the second one they did, right?
Was it the second one? I don't know. It just totally distracted me at the time, though.
Yeah, they did one. I remember you saying they did one with what's his name again? The guy with the big sword.
Not Kuro, not Accent Morgan, not Krieg. Oh, Mihawk?
Yeah, Mihawk.
Yeah, they did one when he cuts one of Krieg's crew. They did a Wilhelm.
Yeah. So the second one.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I guess there's something you can say that like it's fun to include the like Easter egg of the Wilhelm or whatever with the crying out, but at this point,
I think one time is enough.
Well, first of all, one time is enough, but I think at this point you have to have a sort of compelling reason to use it, or it has to the sound of the Wilhelm has to make sense for the scene, because otherwise it's just like a wink and a nod to the audience rather than being genuine. It's more distracting than it is actually contributing to what is happening on screen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, I didn't notice it, but like, if you did, I'm sure others did as well.
Yeah. It's lazy. That's the word I was looking for. It comes across as lazy when you use a stock sound effect that everybody has been using in the form of the
Oh,
Wilhelm, as opposed to producing one yourself, which accurately reflects what is happening in the scene, or even just searching for one which makes more sense than the Wilhelm. You're like, oh, a dude is crying out in pain because he died. Just use the Wilhelm. You're not even thinking about what you're doing in that case. You're just doing it. Because it's easy, because it's convenient.
mhm. Yeah.
Um, and then with Luffy versus Arlong, he starts out with using the sawtooth blade. And I mentioned this later for a different reason, but basically, there's a lot of stuff that happens with the Arlong fight, which expedites the process of that fight at the expense of Arlong's character, because it fails to it it's reducing the effect of him being a arrogant shithead who's looking down on everybody around him, because he'll go on these long rants about racism and why fishmen are superior. But one of the ways that is demonstrated in the actual series is him effectively sitting down for most of what is happening in the conflict, and looking down on everybody and making snide remarks about their abilities. Whereas in this case, he's starting out like strong from the get-go, starting out serious from the get-go. Because otherwise, he only brings out, in the actual series, he only brings out the sawtooth blade when he is seriously angry at
You're
Luffy.
struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did write down that I did that this battle, I guess in the live action, is more like a battle of like ideology. Like Arlong is more like of a selfish person. He's gonna use and abuse people and to get what he wants in the end.
He's been
And
so
so
harmed by the prejudice against the fishmen that he's going to enact that same prejudice towards humans.
yeah.
Whereas
And
Luffy
then
is saying that all creatures are free and equal and deserve freedom.
yeah, and that Nami is not some tool to be used.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, this battle is more a battle of ideologies. And so I thought Luffy's actor did a really good job with that. His acting was, usually his I don't really like his acting all that much,
Yeah, it's
to be
usually pretty
honest.
stiff.
Yes, it's usually pretty stiff, but this time it was really, really good. Like he put a lot of effort into it, so I give him A+. He did good. And
There's
I'm basing it off of what we've seen in the live action. I'm like, okay, this is not this part's like not anime or manga related. This is like on its own, so I'm looking at it that way.
yeah. There's a I guess either phrase or idea, or I guess notion, that Your Movie Sucks abides by, that I heard him say in a video that he posted recently, which is that if an actor consistently is acting poorly throughout a series, that is not the actor's fault, that is the writing and the direction. And that is what I have been conveying over the course of these past 8 episodes, with regards to the acting, which is that it's so consistently bad in such consistent areas and ways that it just doesn't seem reasonable to think that this is the fault of the actors, especially since they've demonstrated that they can act in certain moments, and they have actual careers as well outside of this series. So it doesn't make sense for them to be the issue in this case when all of the characters are consistently acting bad. It has to be the writing
Yeah.
and the direction.
Yeah, I would say the same thing, because like I've seen clips of like most of the actors' other works, and they're really good. They've So when you see him in this, it's like, oh, okay, that's different. What's going on? So like you said, it's not them. It's like the writing. The writing's
Yeah.
just not great.
So, another thing about the change of not having Luffy be drowning throughout most of the fighting is, again, it might not be explicitly necessary for him to go through that drowning sequence, but something that it allows is for the gradual degradation of Arlong's temper, where he sits there as in his superior cockiness, even extending that to the capabilities of his crew, the officers of his crew. And as the minutes go by of them failing to be able to put down specifically Zoro and Sanji, and inevitably being beaten by Zoro and Sanji, this gradually wears on Arlong's temper until he finally takes it upon himself to fight them himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like angry about it too.
Yeah, it seems like this Arlong doesn't. I would say he doesn't really have a temper all that much.
No, he's got a pretty like consistent temper or attitude throughout it all.
Mm-hmm.
Not a very dynamic character.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, that's definitely a good way of putting it. When he's like supposed to be.
Yes.
I mean, he's like the main villain of the
yeah.
So
He is very dynamic in the original series. He has he has violent fits of rage depending on what happens around him. And then there's that whole bit where like his eyes change the way that they look when he gets super angry.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks like a sea king when he starts like losing his mind.
Yeah, right.
Which honestly didn't do that much for me in the original series, but it still like at least points to him being a more dynamic character than he was in the live action.
Yeah. Because in the live action he's more like, hey, come on, like let's do this, like it's, I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, he's a little bit more laid backish until it's like time to like get work done. I would say.
I don't know. It's just I think it's more so he carries the same like tone and intonation in all of his dialogue.
Very flat. Yes.
Yeah. There's no scene where he's like effectively. There's no scene in which he's discernibly more or less angry or upset.
Yeah.
So within this scene of Luffy and Arlong initially confronting each other, Nami is also there and also participating in the conversation. And there's something that irks me about that being the case, that I don't know if I can properly articulate, but like throughout the entire fight in the original series, Nami does not participate because they're fighting on behalf of her. She's unable to fight Arlong herself.
She kind of wants to though, right? Like in the anime, it seems like she kind of wants to, but
I think at one point she goes to like join in. It was something related to what's happening with Luffy. I think, don't fully remember. But it just, I don't know. It feels weird to have the two of them have this back and forth when a lot of what is happening with Nami's character arc here is the abuse that she experienced at the hand of Arlong affecting her emotionally,
mm-hmm.
making her in some way, shape, or form scared to confront him, and so she asks Luffy to help her accomplish that because she couldn't do it on her own.
Yeah. And I did point out in my notes that like at one point the actress like she starts crying, but it's like she's really pushing out that one tear.
It's the one tear.
One tear. And I'm like, this man has taken control of your life for how many years? He has abused you, like, and here he is in front of you, and I'm just like, you would think she would put a little bit more emotion into it, or be a little bit more scared, or like it's something instead of just like one tear rolling down her face. But again, just with the writing and the
Yeah,
direction, I'm
the
assuming
director wasn't all that interested in pushing her to sob all that hard in that scene. Only the scene where she's stabbing herself. That's the only place where she's allowed to like fully emote.
Yeah, but when she's confronting her abuser, like, no, she's not allowed to
Yeah.
express any of that emotion.
Yeah, and on that front, it is actually making me think there are, other works of art, of media out there that depict similar sort of situations and dynamics where there's a verbal confrontation. And oftentimes those confrontations are not only more emotionally charged, but the dialogue in them is a lot more like interesting and
Yeah,
reflective of the relationship that the abuser and the abused has, and sort of how those individual characters see their positions with respect to each other, and what particular gripes those characters hyperfixate on with respect to each other. And I just think the dialogue in the scene is not as interesting as other series that have covered a similar sort of topic.
yeah, definitely, I do agree. Like in like whenever I saw this in the anime and read it in the manga, like I thought it did a really good job depicting the abused and the abuser, and like how family and friends can be there for you and like really help you and support you, kind of like confront you, or like confront your abuser and like kind of help you move on from that. And it it just really touched me, and we get none of those things in the live action, so it's just really sad.
Um, so then we cut back to the big old fight scene, the big brawl, and Buggy, in a moment of reprieve, convinces Zoro and Sanji to let his head go because he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna join the fight," and then he fucks off. And I gotta say, Buggy is still the GOAT in the live action series. He's still the greatest character in this series.
We
He
love
was
Buggy.
he was funny in this scene. His dialogue was funny. His acting was on point. Loved Buggy. Fantastic.
Oh yeah, I'm like, Buggy's actor is great. They really did a good job with him.
Yeah.
He's awesome, man. He's great. And but I'm just like, man, Sanji and Zoro, man, y'all are so dumb. Like, that one brain cell you guys share between each other, man.
Not to mention they were clearly having an easy enough time fighting the fishmen off by themselves
Mhm.
between the two of them. So why would they need Buggy's help anyways?
Exactly. Exactly. Like they were having no problem, and then like, okay, maybe Zoro, like he's like fighting, and at some point he goes like this. Ugh.
It-
Oh.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to comment on later. This is like a problem with removing Hachi. There's long-term problems with removing
Resurrecting
Hachi that you aren't aware of.
Mhm.
But there's immediate problems with removing Hachi as well, and that Zoro doesn't get his own personal opponent. And more important than whether or not he has an opponent is the fact that he is fighting wounded. And so you don't get any of the scenes in which Zoro is basically like bleeding out on his last legs, but still overcoming these fishmen. Or that scene where Arlong tears off his bandages and is like shocked that he's still standing because it's a gross wound. Instead, you just get him like, it hurts.
Yeah, and like his shirt's not bloodied, you know, like
Yeah.
we don't see any bloody bandages or anything. We don't get anybody asking like, "Hey, are you okay, bro?" Like maybe we don't get anybody saying like, "Hey, you shouldn't be fighting," you know, like you're not ready to fight yet. Something.
The brawl fight is also less impressive because originally Zoro off-screened the entirety of the fishmen pirates except for like the little entourage that Arlong brings with him to the village at the time. And so the fact that he has to rely on Sanji's help to take out the fishmen pirates and is more affected by his wounds in the process of that fight than I guess he was when he off-screened the rest of them. It's just less impressive. Zoro was supposed to come across as a really strong guy who pushes through wounds that would otherwise kill normal people.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah, none of that.
I will say, I did like their banter. I thought it was really cute.
Yeah.
And
They did a solid
like,
job
wow.
with the Zoro Sanji banter.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, Zoro actually has chemistry with somebody. Wow. Miracle.
Yeah.
He sure didn't have any chemistry with Nami and Luffy. but you know, Sanji is his bro, so I guess it worked out fine. But yeah, it was just really cute, like them competing with each other like usual. So yeah. I thought that they at least did a good job with that.
The last problem I had with removing Hachi is that there's a lot of humor that is associated with Hachi throughout the arc. And so you're removing a lot of the humor. It's humorless now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the fight with like Arlong and Luffy also has a lot of humor. Like whenever his like teeth fall out, like Luffy kind of makes jokes about it, and like you remember
the teeth,
that
I was gonna get into that later.
Oh, oops. But remember that what was it? That video that I tagged you in on Twitter where where with Arlong is like, "Oh, do you want to know the difference between us?" And Luffy's like, "Nose."
Yeah, it's your nose.
Nose. Like, come on, that's hilarious.
Luffy is such a funny character in the original series, and he's just so boring in the live action.
Yes.
He's so serious.
Oh, yeah, this Luffy is like a saint. Okay, he's so righteous, you know. Like, but yeah, so I'm just like, dang, I really miss the humor. Like, I didn't think I'd miss the humor, but I really do. So yeah.
Yeah. So Usopp debates Chu into running out so he can fight him personally. And this one also doesn't work because it's just eliminating all of Usopp's character development in that fight. It's like they included the fight just because they recognize that the fight is important to the arc, but they don't understand why. So they just like have the fight without any of the what's important about the fight.
Yeah, exactly.
Because what happens is Usopp fakes his death in both versions. But in the difference between the live action and the original series is that he sits there on the ground in the original series thinking about his faking of the death and whether or not he adequately contributed to the fight as a member of the Straw Hat Pirates. Until he inevitably overcomes his cowardice to stand up to fight so that he feels like he did everything that he could possibly do. But in this case, he just kind of fakes his death, and then after Chu turns around, he just stands back up and announces that he's still alive, but with no inner conflict going on. And so, like, so why did you fake your death in the first place? This obviously wasn't like key to your strategy to beating him.
Yeah, exactly. And and like in the manga, like you know, he's remembering all the things his friends have said. Like he's remembering Zoro saying, "I prefer death to defeat." He's remembering Sanji saying, "But hey, compared to a bunch of woman-hating crap pirates, he's not so bad." And then he's remembering Nami saying, "It's business. I had no choice." And he's just like remembering all these things his friends have said. And then he's crying and he finally admits this is shameful.
Yeah.
So like his actions are shameful.
And
you
you
know,
can't have him
and
remembering lines that didn't happen.
true. Because let's just that's all gone. So he because and I think I mentioned this with Kuro is just like Usopp seems like a lot more confident. He's not so much of a scaredy cat or like a loser. You know, he's a lot more confident in himself that he's just feels like a different character. I feel like, you know, like that this is an Usopp.
Yeah, it's just a much more shallow version of Usopp. As I feel like, as opposed to Zoro, who became Zolo, like Zoro actually became a different character. Usopp is a more shallow version of Usopp because they cut a lot of the like dialogue that makes that really makes his character interesting and exciting to watch.
Yeah, and just like really unique, like a unique part of the Straw Hat.
Yeah, he's a super. I mean, all of the Straw Hats are unique in their own ways, but Usopp definitely stands out in regard to like his attitude towards conflict in general and what the Straw Hats are doing, and that he's constantly running from it. He doesn't want to get involved.
Yeah. And but he still wants to be a pirate and he wants to be brave. So he's going to and so he has to you know take that big step and do his best because he wants to protect his friends, you know.
So
He wants to be like his dad. And so and that's why Usopp is one of my favorite characters, okay? I don't like this Usopp.
oh, you're going to continue liking him even more going forward.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm not excited for the live action though. Okay.
No.
For live action Usopp. Ugh.
But yeah, these themes are still present in the live action. They're still like attempting to show these things, but it's not as in depth or as detailed. It's just more shallow.
Yeah, definitely.
Usopp's victory over Chu also felt like way too easy.
Yeah, because
it was just like one explosion.
Man.
It was just one explosion, and that explosion knocked Chu back, but completely didn't affect Usopp. That's not very realistic.
Yeah. And then he didn't like catch fire or anything. He like blew
No,
up a
he
little
was
bit.
he was smoldering a little bit. I mean, yeah, damage can be dealt in different ways to living beings, but like it just did come across as like too easy for Usopp. Not much of a struggle. Oh, and part of the reason for that, I just remembered, is because the fire didn't actually take out Chu originally. Usopp had to go in and beat him with a hammer afterwards.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
He's like, did I actually win? And then Chu starts to get up and be angry, and Usopp just whacks him with a hammer and a rubber band of doom and a hammer.
Yeah, that's right. I totally forgot about that.
And the rubber band of doom is a funny joke, and they don't include it.
Bummer. What a waste, man. What a waste.
And it's reminding me of another joke that involves Hachi, in which I think it's while Luffy, or it's when Luffy is about to fight Arlong, Hachi pops in while he's wounded, trying to fight. Oh no, it was when Zoro was fighting Arlong. Hachi pops in to like interrupt the fight, and there's like this somewhat long dialogue scene, and Usopp is in the back trying to like distract Hachi and the other fishmen to buy more time, and he uses and he tries to fire the rubber band to do it too.
Yeah. Man, freaking sucks, bro.
Just missing all of the greatest jokes of all time.
Yeah. Oh, and I did say that this Usopp is like too smug. I would say a little bit too smug.
I can see how they wanted to adapt this very cartoony character and the way he acts into a real person with that shift in attitude. And that is one of the sort of swaps between an animation and a live action series that I think does make sense on a conceptual level. And you don't have to sacrifice the tone and the jokes in the series to make that that similar but different attitude still work. So I don't think that that's necessarily an issue, but it is true. It is different in certain ways than the actual Usopp.
Yeah, true. But I kind of feel like they did the same thing with Luffy too. So
Yeah, I think with Luffy it's like an actual detrimental change though, because with Luffy the changes they made were at the direct cost of his character and his characterization and his character arcs.
Yeah, that's true. And he's like the main character, so
Yeah,
kind of awkward.
it's pretty awkward. Speaking of Luffy, we go back to his fight with Arlong, and he punches Arlong's teeth and breaks them, and he cheers victory. I broke your teeth. Which, first of all, is a little odd because the reason he got excited about breaking Arlong's teeth originally is because Arlong like used his teeth to bite into him and other objects, and they were dangerous. They were shown to be dangerous before Luffy broke them and then regrew them. And then furthermore, the teeth aren't actually used for anything within the fight. It's just like, oh wow, shark's teeth regrow, so I guess they regrow here, and nothing is done with that.
Yeah, cool party trick. And because they fall out individually, the teeth, they don't fall out like.
They don't follow his and then uses that clamp as a weapon, and then Luffy also uses the clamp in his jaw and also as like a weapon.
Oh, that's freaking hilarious.
Yeah, again, missing just a really funny joke that is a natural consequence of the evolution of the fight. And one of the reasons that a joke like that is important as opposed to just funny is because of how it shows Luffy's character. It is a way of demonstrating Luffy's attitude and his approach to fights. But you just don't get that. You just don't get that here.
Yeah, because it seems like this Luffy, he doesn't really like fights. He wants to be like a peacemaker, when the other Luffy is like, or Luffy in the anime is like, let's freaking go, bro.
Yeah, Luffy
I'm
wants to fight
ready.
people constantly in the anime.
Yeah, and this Luffy's like, no, we have to have peace.
Not the same. He's like Thorfinn. I have no enemies.
Yes, definitely. Like, who is this man? I don't know him. Okay.
And then there's a dialogue between Luffy and Arlong in which Luffy says, "Maybe I can't beat you," and I'm just thinking, what is this writing? Why did you put this line here? What are you doing? Did you even watch the original series? Because Luffy, for the most part, doesn't have like that much issue taking down Arlong. It's not like that close of a fight, and he kind of doesn't take it that seriously. And he definitely can beat Arlong. And so here it's like, I can't beat you, so I'm going to use the collapse of the building to beat you for me. And it's just, that's not how it works.
That's not how it works.
It's not how it works.
Yeah, and yeah, it was just like an awkward sentence. Because Luffy's always confident in himself,
Yeah.
Always confident he can win.
And one of the
At least at this point in the story, I don't know if
yeah, I mean, Crocodile is like the first point in the series where he like actually loses, and there's
Yeah.
actual reason to think that he might not always win. And actually that is like a confidence thing that he has to work on in a later arc that you have not seen yet. And it's really awesome that that's like a significant character growth moment for Luffy, that he lost to somebody and he's like, I need to step up my game if I'm going to be able to protect everyone. Because up to that point in the series he hadn't needed to do that yet. But here he shouldn't need to do that. Arlong is relatively small fry in comparison to Luffy's fighting capabilities. And so it's just very bizarre that you would have him say, maybe I can't beat you.
And this is technically their second time fighting. So like Luffy should know a little bit how to beat him, I would say, you know.
Well, and they're not even near water.
The second round.
The reason he lost the first time is because he was tossed into the water. Or not even tossed into the water, because he was splashed with water and then tossed into it. So they're not even fighting in water this time. So there should be no issue.
Yeah. So, like, what's going on, Luffy?
It also defeats the purpose it does defeat the purpose of the reason why Luffy destroys Arlong Park in the first place. Because in this case, he's destroying Arlong Park, I guess, to defeat Arlong. But the reason why he destroys Arlong Park in the actual series is because of what it represents to Nami, and he does it in front of Arlong because Arlong is too beneath him to require his attention in the fight.
Yeah.
And if your opponent doesn't require your attention while you're destroying this room that is the representation of your friend's trauma, then why would you say the line, maybe I can't beat you? There's no question of whether or not Luffy can beat Arlong, like, at any point during the Arlong Park arc.
Yeah, like you said, it's just very strange.
Yes.
I'm surprised, like, nobody caught it, or like nobody was like, maybe that's kind of weird, bro. But whatever.
Also, the fight between Luffy and Arlong, it actually does take place on a higher floor of Arlong Park. The rest of the live action, the rest of the previous episode and this one, does not make it obvious that this room is actually on an upper floor.
Yeah, I thought it was like on the bottom.
It seemed like it was on the ground floor because of how it was presented before, but it actually was on an upper floor, I noticed. So the criticisms I had before over Arlong Park being like a big vast empty space apparently are actually inaccurate, but it's a different criticism that I have instead, that this wasn't obvious that this room was like just a room in Arlong Park and not just the ground floor big empty space. Like, when did they get to the upper floors? For all of the like 5 or 6 times that they've been in this room in the past 2 episodes, there's been no indication that they had to like climb any stairs or anything to get up there.
Yeah, because usually, like in movies and stuff, when something's like on the top floor, you see people walking upstairs, getting on elevators, like something.
Not to mention,
to signify that, like, oh, it's up on a level.
Yeah, not to mention the main reason it's implied that this is on the ground floor is actually earlier in this episode when Luffy and Nami walk into Arlong Park. They walk into Arlong Park and the next shot you see of them is in that room. So by the Kuleshov effect, the expectation is that that's the room you go into when you enter into the building of Arlong Park. So why is it on an upper floor now? I don't understand. When did this happen? When did they climb the stairs?
Yeah, it's just weird. And you would think too, like, because Nezumi goes in there too, you know, he's like, oh, I'm gonna invite you to the map room. Like, why would you invite somebody to like one of the upper floors?
Yeah, usually that would usually be like a ground floor main discussion area room as opposed to
Yeah.
Nami's map room.
It's just awkward.
Yeah.
And the way it's built too, like it's built
Yeah, it also just
that,
looks
like
like it's a central room.
yeah, and even like the way the sunlight's coming in, like and the way people enter, like it just looks like it's on the ground floor. It's weird.
And I think the entire reason why I recognized it's not on it, or the entire reason I recognized it is an upper floor is when he does the battle axe, it shows Arlong going through the different ceilings. And that's like the only indication that it's more than one floor is when he's shown breaking through multiple ceilings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think somebody says, I can't remember who says it, but they're like, "Where's Luffy?" And Nami's like, "Oh, he's up there." And so like he's up, like she's saying he's up on one of the upper floors. So you're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it's up there then. Oh, whatever.
Yeah. And it was briefly touched on in a previous comment that we had, but once again, like to reiterate, Luffy is not destroying the room that Nami, or rather, in the live action, he is not destroying the like equipment and the maps that she made, and the trauma that is associated with and built into those, in front of her. He is instead breaking the pillars that will inevitably lead to the collapse of the building. And it's for the sake of defeating Arlong, rather than for the sake of showing her, I am defeating your past, so you can move on from it. It's
Yeah,
just like
and start anew.
there's just completely different reasons for the actions that are taking place, even if they're kind of similar. But even then, they're not like entirely similar because it's not like he's kicking the desk out the window or destroying any of the maps. He's just destroying the pillars.
Yeah, to make it collapse. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just like breaking the structure of the building. It's not breaking any of the significant materials that have been involved in her life. And even like and Nami in the anime, she's like covered, and like her desk gets thrown out the window too, and Nami sees that in the anime.
Yeah.
And she's like
With the
covering
foot
her
stamp in
mouth.
it.
Yeah, and
It's-
she's like covering her mouth, and she's like, "Thank you."
I don't
so much."
remember. I don't remember if she actually cries in that scene, but she like at least looks like she's about to cry because of what Luffy is doing.
Looks like it, but she doesn't. Maybe she squeezes out one tear, and I just didn't see it.
Oh no, I'm referring to the anime when he kicks
Oh.
the desk out the window. When she does that gasp. I don't remember if she actually cries in that moment, but she at least like looks like she's
Looks
about
like
to cry.
She's on the verge of tears. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this Nami is kind of like.
Well, this
live
Nami
action,
doesn't
she's
even
kinda
get
like,
to see him doing any of that.
yeah.
In part because he doesn't
Yeah,
do it. He just destroys the pillars. But she,
Yeah.
again, she doesn't see what he's doing.
Yeah, she's just like, "Oh, he's up there."
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's significant. It's probably significant to her, but like we don't really know how she feels about it either.
I
We
mean,
don't get her POV
if
about
the
it.
show doesn't show us that it's significant to her, it's not. I mean, I can only
It's
assume
not.
it's not significant
It's
if
not.
it doesn't. If you're not showing it to be significant.
She doesn't care.
Yep, doesn't matter.
But yeah, I would have appreciated if they would have showed her POV, something like we could have heard her thoughts in her head, but we just nothing. And this is supposed to be a very important moment for her. Apparently not. So okay. I'm like, did any of these it was probably men who wrote this, okay? Did any of them talk to women who have been in abusive situations? Because that's what they should have done, okay? Like, come on.
I'm
Do
just
your homework, my dudes.
I'm just more concerned about whether or not they even thought about the series that they were reading for half a second before adapting it. He's just literally brainless adaptation writing. There's zero media literacy on display here.
Yeah, they just they took the cool parts, it seems, of One Piece and kind of just slapped it together.
They took the cool parts.
There's no depth.
They took the cool parts without understanding why they're cool. And there's a quote I'm going to provide when we finish that's related to that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So the building collapses, and the other Straw Hats are watching in like breathless anticipation of, oh, is Luffy okay? And then he busts out of the rubble. He's like, ah, I won, and they all start laughing nervously, like, oh, I was so nervous about him winning, and I'm like, I wasn't nervous at all. I'm not in the same headspace as any of you. What is happening here? This is so weird.
Yeah, and even the laughing is weird. It's like,
Well, yeah, it's supposed to be a nervous laughing, like, oh, yeah, thank God he's safe. But it's the reason it's shallow is because it's weird that they would think that he was going to be not okay in the first place.
Yeah, and all of them have said, like, I believe in Luffy. There was like, I believe, okay, Luffy's gonna win, you know?
Yeah, that is something that carries through like the entirety of One Piece, is even when Luffy like temporarily loses a fight, or even if there's some kind of reason to think that he might fail or be severely wounded or killed, something that consistently happens with the Straw Hats is that they have learned through being a part of his crew and through his actions to believe in him and to trust him. This is actually a very notable thing that happened in one of the most recent arcs, is that Luffy is like temporarily down for the count, and the main villain announces to like this entire basically island full of people brawling. It's a really big brawl. There's a lot of shit going on. He basically announces, your captain is dead. Surrender now. And all of the Straw Hats basically say, I'll believe it when I see it. I believe in Luffy.
Yeah.
And so they never... The point is that they learn to not have any doubts in his capability to pull through in the end. And that they should do their part to make sure he has that opportunity to pull through.
Right.
That was kind of off topic, I suppose. But it's just weird that they were even nervous about him succeeding in the first place.
Yeah, I guess they wanted the audience to be nervous, so they made them nervous. So
yeah.
And I'm like, oh, why again? Like, bro, I feel like most people who watched it were probably One Piece fans, so they've seen this before. So whatever.
Yes and no. It seems like there was plenty of people who weren't One Piece fans who watched it who were like, yeah, this is decent or whatever. And I'm like, oh, it's just atrociously bad. Most of the people who are like actively praising it, though, are One Piece fans, which makes me think that I should stop liking One Piece, because I don't want to be lumped in with such media illiterate dumbasses.
Okay. Like, I don't think it's that serious. Calm down, take a breath. Okay.
It is that serious. The more I've watched of this, the closer it has gotten to being the worst thing I have ever watched.
Oh, seriously, the worst thing.
Well, maybe not from like a technical perspective. Like, it is not the most technically problematic thing that I have watched. It doesn't have like technically the worst writing or technically the worst visuals or anything of that sort. But it just feels offensive. That is why it is one of the worst things I've ever watched. It's because of how offensive it is to me as a fan of One Piece for it to flagrantly disregard everything that is important, everything that is good about One Piece, for the sake of something that, like, kind of sort of appeals to Western audiences, as though Western audiences can't enjoy animation or some of the style of that. It also feels like a deep disregard for people's ability to enjoy fiction and art in general. Because there are different reasons for enjoying different series. They can convey different things. There doesn't need... It is not as though Western audiences adhere to this homogenous style of things that they like in their television shows or movies. And yet that seems to be the prevailing direction that is taken with anime adaptations, is that they all have to have this more serious, grim, dark style to them, even though the series that they are adapting, some of them may be serious, but a lot of them have their highs and their lows, and they have their moments of brevity inside of them. And then even more importantly, on top of that, there is like actual themes that are occurring in the series, and actual characterization that you can like think about and internalize and feel something about. And in these live action adaptations, it's like they just sap all of the living, breathing core of these Japanese series for such silly reasons as being as it feels like the people who make these adaptations think that Western audiences are brain dead, that they can't think for themselves, that it's just, if you live in America, you're media illiterate. That is the impression that I get from watching these live action series, and that is deeply offensive. And I'm even more offended on the part of One Piece, because I particularly like One Piece. And so when you just disregard everything that's good about One Piece, I am going to get offended by that.
No, I mean, yeah, and that's what I was like trying to. I mean, I told you that's what I was trying to tell somebody before. Like, imagine somebody took out all the life lessons and the very important parts of like your favorite series, and took out everybody's personalities and like character arcs that were important to them, and then just said, okay, here it is. Ta-da. And then it's not even the same anymore.
Here are all the set pieces. You know, the meaning of those set pieces doesn't matter. But here's the set pieces. The set pieces are all you care about, right? Surely the set pieces are all you care about. It doesn't matter if whether or not like somebody who's never watched the original series may or may not enjoy what you're showing them or think that it's good. Because all that matters is that the fans are going to watch it, and the fans only care about the set pieces, and the fans are dumb. The fans are stupid. They don't understand why they like the series that they like. All you need to do is show them the aesthetic of the thing that they like, and they'll like it.
Yeah, it just looks cool. And look, it's like the same people, and yeah, it's fun. And oh, look at the big fights, fun. Look at all the special effects.
Gomu no battle axe. Ah, yay! Whoa!
Yeah, I guess you're right that I guess like and yeah, because it seems like always like with anime and manga, like it's very different from what Western audiences normally read. I feel like it goes into much deeper topics that help you be more introspective. And whenever it seems like Western media is a lot more like cut and dry. You know what I mean?
Even then, I don't think that's true, because plenty of Western media has that sort of introspective depth, and plenty of Japanese media is not the way that you describe. You get
Probably
things.
just say anime.
Even anime, especially since a lot of anime is adapted from other sources anyways. You get things all across the spectrum of like ideas and presentation in every culture and place of origin. It's just very bizarre to me that Hollywood likes to take these things and strip all of what was good about it for the sake of something that is, I guess, more like the Marvel movies, where it's like the most broadly appealing, shallow popcorn product that you can consume. And it feels like a deep disregard for the meaning of art itself and why it's important. It's the same energy as business people using AI to create their stuff. The means through which these people are using the AI, the AI itself is not the problem. It's these people seeing AI as a means to cut out the artist from the process of making the art. The artist is, regardless of whether the artist uses AI or other tools, they are the most important part of the process of creating the art. They are the ones who can use those tools to mold it into the shape of something that is meaningful to consume. When you cut the artist out of that process for the sake of something that is commercially viable, then you get something that sucks, but everybody watches it anyways because there's nothing, because it's just generally enjoyable. Even if it's bad, it's like kind of it just like gives you that trickle of dopamine that's like, this is fun, question mark.
Yeah.
I don't need to think too hard about it.
Yeah, and you just enjoy the ride, and that's it. And don't think about it too much later.
Yeah.
Until you start thinking about it and you watch it 2 or 3 times, and you're like, "Whoa!"
Yeah. And thanks to
like we did.
And thanks to this podcast, I was starting to do it a little bit before we started this, but especially after we started this podcast, I've thought about One Piece to more significant of a depth than I ever have before, and like what is presented inside of One Piece. And there is so much to the story of One Piece. Whether Oda intends it or not, although I would wager that most of it is intentional, there's a lot of depth to the themes of One Piece. And it's just... So I get just so upset when I watch this live action flagrantly disregard all of that.
Yeah, it's a lot of you're missing all of the hard work that's been put into the series, and you're missing like the life source
Yeah.
of the series. Which is those amazing lessons that you can learn from and that you can pull from, and it's just like you're just skimming the surface. When you dig deeper, there's so much more there that you can find. But like you said, it's just lazy. It's just lazy writing.
There's
And I think it's just people who wanted to make a quick buck off a very popular series. It's not something they particularly loved and enjoyed. I assume so.
there's a reason why One Piece has been and will continue to be a cultural icon for many years to come. And there's similarly a reason why the live action One Piece will not attain that status of being a culturally important work of art. Like,
Oh yeah.
like One
Yeah,
Piece.
did you see that that the thing that I tagged you in, where like the One Piece panel of like the Mexican guy, I think his name is like Captain Taco or something.
Yeah. One
Yeah,
Piece is in a Mexican museum.
yeah,
Because
like
I think
wild.
I mean, I can't speak Spanish, but I'm guessing it's because Oda based the design of that character off of
A rebel leader,
yeah.
in Mexico.
Yeah.
And what he says in Spanish is like it's better to stand on your feet than like sit on your knees or something like that. So
Yeah. Oda
so it's pretty cool.
Oda's pretty well researched into revolutionary movements.
Yeah, and so like the Mexicans were like, heck yeah! So it's in a museum.
Let's
It's a very important cultural icon.
Yeah. But it's like One Piece is not the only manga that has been running for the time span that it's been running for, with the amount of chapters that it's been running for.
Mhm.
There's like Detective Conan, and there's like Hajime no Ippo. And while especially Hajime no Ippo, from my understanding, is really great, One Piece is still far more successful and permeates through the cultural consciousness of the Japanese people and also people globally far more than Hajime no Ippo, because One Piece says a lot of things that speak more directly to the heart of the people who are reading it. And so the live action has demonstrated that it will never be interested in evoking that same reaction.
Yeah, I think that's true. Definitely. And it's just very sad to see, because it could have been great, you know. Like all these actors are really good. They've really enjoyed some of them even like looked at the anime, looked at the manga, like they were ready to go. I mean, they were ready, and the directors and writers kind of failed them as well.
Yeah.
So
I mean, apparently the showrunner is a big fan of One Piece too, but I no longer believe him.
or I mean, there are fans of series that like don't are not media literate, you know.
Yeah, don't understand what they're reading. I mean, also
Yeah.
the live action One Piece pulled on like a fan who has like created One Piece fan fiction before. Arthur, he calls himself Library of Ohara. You don't know what Ohara is yet, but
No.
he this is like this big fan theory guy. They brought him on to like do make sure that they have like the lore correct and like the reference and can make references throughout the series or whatnot and whatever. And it's like to me this comes across as a poor decision, because I have read what his fan fiction is, The Return to Reverie, and it's like, no. This ain't it, Chief.
No,
And
I don't think so.
and he's also said various things that are like just kind of incorrect or misreadings of the material, for the sake of like theorizing about it as well. It's just poor decision. Why'd you include him? This is fucking stupid. All right.
Money.
Yeah. Well, that rant came a little early, because that was like very much a conclusive rant when we're not even done with the episode. I think we're like
Almost
just about.
done, yeah.
I think we're like about halfway through the episode, but maybe we're at 2/3.
Yeah, probably. I think like 2/3. Yeah, we're like almost done.
Yeah. So Luffy wins, and then this is where Garp steps in, and I've made my case as to why this is stupid, but I just will never be able to get over Garp attempting to arrest Luffy and how like stupid it is. Especially since in this case now it is a direct parallel to what happens in Water 7. The previous stuff was like basically original writing revolving around Garp in the live action, but now they're basically making a direct parallel to what happens at the end of Water 7 with Garp, that just fails because it's totally misreading and misrepresenting what Garp does at that point in time and what his emotions are and his dialogue, and it's just stupid. It's really stupid. And it's dumb and it's stupid.
Why does
and
it
it's
come
dumb.
so early then? That's weird.
Yeah. I again think that the reason why they put Garp in is because they wanted to have like a sort of B story that they can tie in at the end of the series, so like it is its own like self-conclusive thing or whatever, and like have another thing going on. And in doing so, they incorporated various Garp stuff that happens later on in the series into now. But they just do it poorly. He shouldn't have been here now. He didn't need to be here now, and when they put him in now, it didn't work.
Yeah, and my whole thing was like, Garp, you're using government funds to like Track down your grandson. What the
Well,
heck, bro?
Garp can do whatever the fuck he wants. Let's be real.
Apparently.
He's the hero of the Marines. He can do whatever the fuck he wants, even in the actual series.
Yeah, and you know, and like, Garp is basically like testing Luffy, I guess, to kind of see like
Yeah,
is this what he really wants to do? But as you said, that
it,
Garp never wants to do that. You
that
know,
what
in series.
that also gives me a headache, not just because it's a failure on the part of adaptation, but even within the series itself, it's a failure. It's a self-contradiction. Because he says the line, "I know who you are. I just needed to make sure you know that you know too." But this
And
this
I
comes
think
as a
that
contradiction to like his entire attitude and everything he's done in every single episode prior. He never gave any sort of indication that this is what he would like wanted to say and do towards Luffy, that this is how he felt.
exactly, and it just comes out like as a surprise, and a bad surprise, not a good surprise.
Yeah, they they didn't
And
just retcon the original series. They retconned their own adaptation of the series.
it just confused everybody. And that like my my thing too is like I was like, maybe this scene was just for the audience, just to they have the scene just to show that Luffy means business, and he's serious about going to the Grand Line, and that he's serious about being a pirate. This is what he really wants to do. And I said, but we should know that based on his actions throughout the story. We really don't need a reminder in this way.
Yeah, show don't tell, but there's a whole lot of
Yeah.
telling going on here.
Yeah, and so I was like, okay, maybe that's why they added this in here. But again, it's just super awkward to add this Garb scene. And I mean, like, and then the fight scene's not even that great. Like, Garp just punches him a few times. I mean, like, they were like super big punches and stuff, but like boring.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean it's
like
not
if you're gonna like, I'm sick of Garp, but if you're gonna include him, like, come on, make it a good fight, bro.
it's not interesting, but I'm kind of fine with it because that is Garp's fighting style. He's Garp the Fist is his nickname. He's not just Garp the hero of the Marines, he's also Garp the Fist. He literally just punches people.
Mhm.
So it's fine. It is technically an uninteresting fight scene, but I have more issue with them having the fight scene in the first place than the way the fight scene happened.
Yeah, and it's like it's like I said, it's such a weird way to like test Luffy, and then like the way Luffy laugh reminds him of Gold Roger. And,
Yeah,
like,
that was something I wrote down, is that they included the parallel with him laughing in the face of death as in the same way that Gold Roger does, but that's a thing that happens in Logtown when he's about to be executed. So they put that
we
one.
should have added that there.
Yeah, they put that one too early. And it also just it doesn't make as much sense because I feel like the threat of his death in this moment is not as prominent. I mean, he got bodied by Garp for like a minute maybe, and now they're doing this thing, and there's like no build up to having this parallel moment. I don't know. It was shallow.
Yeah, and it just everything happened just so quick. That like you said, when Garp's like, "LOL, just kidding. I just want to test you." Okay, let's go, guys. Let's go get the fishman. Bye.
He went through all of that work for like how many weeks, only to be like, oh yeah, I mean, you're a pirate. I knew you were a pirate, and I'm gonna let you do it now.
About this. I know my grandson. I'm like, do you know your grandson, Garp?
I needed to make sure you were serious about being a pirate, so I'm gonna waste several weeks of my and my crew's time chasing you down, getting increasingly frustrated at you doing clearly pirate things, so I can beat you up for like a minute, and then leave.
Oh, God. And everybody and then you have Kobe and Helmeppo that's standing up, and they're like, no, we're not gonna arrest Luffy. But then it's like means nothing because like the intention was to never arrest Luffy, it seems like. So
Yeah, yeah. There's just all throughout the series. There's constant talk about Garp wanting to arrest Luffy, and he's like, "Don't kill Luffy. You gotta arrest him." To so many people, that's where my mention of it feeling like he retconned its own Garp at the end here is there's no indication throughout the rest of the live action that this was his intent with Luffy. It felt the entire time the writing was as though he was very intent on capturing Luffy as a pirate, not to beat some sense into him. Otherwise, why would he get like so angry at Luffy evading capture and like flipping tables or whatever, or so angry at Luffy escaping after destroying the mast of his ship? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and it yeah, and usually like what's with movies, right? Um, where they have like things like this, and you go back and you connect the dots. It makes sense, like the actions make sense with the character's original intent, and you're like, oh, I can see why he did this in the past. I can see why he did this there. That makes sense. And like you said, like with Garp, it's like, why did he do anything that he did? None of it makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Garp is very handsome. He's a very handsome man. But I'm sick of him and I never want to see him again. Sorry, Garp.
Yeah,
Love you,
yes.
but
So, then we get a scene of Nami at Belmare's grave, and she talks with
oh, and
Nojiko.
that dress Nami is wearing is absolutely stunning. I'm like, oh, that is my favorite dress. I want to dress like it. She's just beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. 10 out of 10. The best outfit in One Piece. 10 out of 10. Okay,
I
you may
believe
continue.
you. Uh,
You may
but
continue.
but the main reason I bring this up is because it actually reminded me of something that I guess that I should have mentioned in the previous episode. Was the reason why Nojiko gets her tattoos is completely absent from the live action. There's this entire, because of what they did with Nojiko in this case, and they made her not aware of what Nami was doing until the Straw Hats show up at the island to like take Nami back or whatever. Her tattoos on her body are just for aesthetic purposes, I guess, in the live action, but there's actually like meaning behind the tattoos that Nojiko has in the original series, where after she learns of Nami's like plan and intent to buy the village back, and she sees how devastating the branding in the form of that tattoo that Arlong put on her is for her emotionally, she says, "I'm gonna get tattoos myself as a show of solidarity with Nami."
Yeah.
There's this deep like sisterhood and emotional weight behind those tattoos, and it's like, no, fuck that, out the window.
Just like tattoos are cool. And like in the world of One Piece, it almost seemed like the impression that I got in this arc was that tattoos were taboo to have. And so the fact that Nojiko went out of her way to get tattoos too, even though it's kind of shameful to get tattoos, was also a very big thing as well. So,
Um,
that's what she would do for her sister. I mean, I may have
it's
to go back and double check, but that's the impression that I
yeah,
got.
it's not as though tattoos are taboo in the world of One Piece. It's just that their common usage is to show what pirate crew you're part of. Pirates are the ones who most commonly use tattoos, and they typically tattoo their captain's or their crew's flag onto their body.
Yeah,
For
like,
example, Ace
Yeah, Ace.
puts
He
the
has it
symbol
on
of
his
the
whole
Whitebeard
back.
pirates on his back. The definitely not retconned from a swastika to a cross.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Because the white people got to steal everything.
Um. So that was the thing to complain about. Here's a question that I actually have for you, because I did not go back and check. Do you remember when Luffy originally learned about his 30 million bounty?
Ooh,
Because I feel like it wasn't immediately prior to setting sail off of the islands.
I feel like it. I feel like it was when they were on the boat. When they were on the boat, maybe.
Was it prior to
Maybe not.
Logtown or after Logtown?
Ye- It was. I think it was before
Oh,
Lockdown.
well, if it's before Logtown, then it isn't an actual change or an actual
Mhm.
substantive change. And even if it was after Logtown, I don't think it would matter all that much, anyways.
Mhm.
It was just something that I would have noted.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it did. And I like the way they did the poster. It was pretty cute, when they have Usopp's back.
Yeah, I
and,
mean,
and it, yeah, I
the
thought it was
poster
cute.
looked nice.
Yeah, it was really cute. And then I like that that Kobe went up to Luffy and was like, "Oh, like I'm coming to you as a friend," like and even though they're both on different sides of the team, they're both on different teams. They both recognize each other and they're both friends, and they both are encouraging each other to kind of do their own thing in life. So,
Yeah.
I did like that.
Um, I did note that Helmeppo's arc is weaker in the live action as well, because similarly to how they didn't have any of the like internal monologuing, internal turmoil for Usopp, there also wasn't really any of that for Helmeppo. So you didn't get to see any of like his internal deliberation and growth into wanting to become a strong Marine. And I guess
Yeah.
a lot of we don't really get to, although Kobe and Helmeppo have a lot of scenes together, it doesn't really feel like those scenes develop a
Too much.
friendship between them or a
It-
camaraderie. At least certainly
yeah,
not in the same way it is in the original series.
yeah. It just seems like they're just kind of stuck together, and they're always they're just in proximity to each other, so they
Yeah.
talk a lot.
Yeah.
They-
They're in
that's
similar
what it seems
positions.
like. Yeah, they're both cadets, so like they talk
Yeah.
a lot. And yeah, because doesn't Helmeppo want his kind of old life back, right? That's like his
Yeah.
goal.
That was
Yeah.
that wasn't his goal, but originally when they were taken under Garp's wing and training under him, that was like his attitude. Is he
Mm,
not only at first he felt entitled to have his own life back, but more importantly than that, he just wanted to have his old life back. But he gradually grows from that position into being more like Kobe.
okay. Okay, that makes sense.
And more importantly, having a lot more like self-respect and determination to improve himself.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Um
Yeah. Wasn't sure if his intention was still to like, oh, I'm gonna train, I'm gonna become, like in the Marines, and I'm gonna try to get my life back, kind of thing. But yeah, okay.
I
Um.
also I also wanted to, in that same scene, make note of another form of tell don't show that the live action engages in, which is when Kobe and Helmeppo ask if they're going to be reprimanded for disobeying Garp's orders to capture Luffy earlier. Garp has this short little tangent on how each Marine has their own brand of justice I have to discover. And this is actually something very important to the themes of One Piece, but One Piece shows this rather than states it in a variety of ways. And you don't have a good idea of this because you haven't in the series so far encountered any Marines outside of Smoker who are long-term characters throughout the series. And it's actually even shown in Smoker that he's like developing his own personal sense of justice that is dissociated from what the organization of the Marines are trying to accomplish. But there's other more explicit ways that the series demonstrates this, specifically through its admirals, this brand of justice thing. That is far more nuanced and interesting, and that the viewer sort of comes to understand in a more natural way than having to be told it like they're stupid.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't have
agree
baby
with that.
brain.
No, definitely baby brain. Okay. Itty bitty baby brain.
So in the montage of all of the other characters seeing the bounty that has been put on Luffy's head, the only thing I had to note is that Alvida is not slim. She's not slim Alvida. She's still chunky Alvida.
Yeah, and the actress that plays her, she is skinny. So like I don't know if she gained weight
Was
for
that
the
a fat
role or
suit?
had like yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I think it might be a fat suit.
But
Because like
if she is skinny, then why didn't they let her be skinny for that scene and take off the fat suit then? Because she's supposed to be skinny at that point.
yeah, I don't know. Because I watched an interview of her after the One Piece and like and like I saw her at like a gala that she went to and she's skinny. Like she's fit. So I was like, "Oh, okay."
I mean,
So
let's be clear. Her being skinny is like not all that important, all things considered.
but
But
it's
it just
devil fruit, you know?
yeah. But some of the reason why she was given that devil fruit is, well, I mean, first of all, is probably due to like aesthetic choices either on the part of Oda or his editors. But it
You know, fat phobia.
it allows her to scale to the strength of the likes of Buggy, because otherwise she's like literally a scrub. she's only got 5 million berries on her head, I'm pretty sure, and Luffy takes her out in like one punch without any challenge whatsoever. And so giving her the slim fruit actually causes her to be able to pose a challenge to Luffy and the other Straw Hats, without having to have her go through like a training arc.
Yeah, pretty much. So like maybe they'll just have her be skinny for the next
Or maybe they'll just make her inexplicably stronger, which would be far more hilarious, because that's yet another plot hole I can make fun of.
Yeah, maybe they'll just make her stronger in the fat suit. I had to have been a fat suit because I'm like, I don't know, like you gaining all that weight and then losing it very quickly.
That would be a lot of that would be a lot of weight to gain.
Yeah, it would be because she was big.
Yeah,
and but anyways, that's not super important. But yeah. I thought it was a good thing to mention that like, no, she's skinny now.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes it more confusing if the actress was skinny to begin with. Like, you could have just let her be her normal size for that scene.
Yeah, because like all the interviews that I was looking at in the past like few years, she's always been skinny.
So odd.
Yeah, it was a weird choice, but okay. Whatever, I don't know, you know, they've been making weird choices throughout this whole live action, so
yeah, it's true. What's one more weird choice on the pile?
Exactly.
There's also the scene where they declare their dreams. It rings a little bit more hollow because their dreams didn't feel as important to their characters in the live action, or they weren't as central to the focus of any particular arc or moment. And then they also don't smash the barrel with their legs.
Yeah.
Shame. They're supposed to smash the barrel. Shame.
And also like and you know whenever it's done after Logtown, like they went through some crazy stuff at the town, and then
was it after
and there's,
Logtown?
like, yeah, it was.
Okay.
And there's like turbulent weather and like the sea is rocky. And so like even it kind of showed me that like even throughout all this chaos, they are still sticking together they're remembering their dreams, and they will make it through anything. And so that's why I like that scene of it being in the rain and stuff. And it's so beautiful. It's like beautifully drawn in the manga as well. And so this is just like everything's calm, everything's chill, and they're declaring their dreams for like, random at random. So yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Ignatius.
Yeah.
He's so pretty. Oh, apparently, I've just found this out. Ignatius was one of the apostles' like followers.
Yeah, why do you think my
Um,
grandmother named him that?
yeah, yeah, but
I don't
and
know any details
apparently,
because I'm not, a biblically, I'm a pretty biblically ignorant person, but I knew it was a religiously originating name.
yeah, and so like apparently Ignatius was like a witness to the apostle, but like because he wrote letters and
I
to
mean,
the apostle, but
that's basically
but
all
they were
this
forged.
Ignatius is a witness.
Yeah, but they were forged. So no, unfortunately. But yeah,
Um,
fun fact for the day.
so that was the last thing I had to say, and we already went on like the long rant about like just overall problems with the series. But do you have any closing thoughts here?
I don't think so. No,
It's
has a lot
bad.
of complaining. Bad.
My closing thoughts are it's bad, it's awful. It's got poor cinematography, poor writing, poor acting, poor direction, poor soundtrack, and poor tone. It's just bad across the board. Thoroughly hated it. Made me upset. It offended me.
Made me fussy.
Made me fussy. 1 out of 10. And I will conclude with a quote from a just today uploaded video from YouTuber Little Joel about the live action Avatar The Last Airbender remake, the one not made by M. Night Shyamalan. And so he says early on in the video, the biggest the biggest critique I'm going to get is that you can't just criticize this show for not being the original. You can't just look at every difference between it and the original and say, that makes this bad. But the thing is, if you're going to change the source material, you might as well have a reason to do that. The change should at least be plausibly better than the thing that came before it. And this isn't better. I say the same thing for the
Amen.
live action One Piece. This
It has to
isn't
be
better.
plausibly better. That is beautiful. Yes, that is so true. It has to be plausibly better if you're going to change things. It has to be for a good reason, and it has to make sense in the context of your story. And duh. And there's a bunch of plot holes in the live action.
Yeah.
And none of them are better. None of the changes are better.
Whenever I have remarked about a change from the original series to the live action over the past, like, roughly 16 hours, I think, of us talking about this series.
16 hours?
Yeah, roughly 2 hours per
Lord.
episode, 8 episodes. Every single time I have remarked about a change, it is for that precise reason. Those changes have to be plausibly better if you're going to make them. But those changes were not better, which is why I ragged on them.
Yeah, and I mean, I did the same thing. I went back in my brain and I was like, okay, this is different, but why? Why is it important? Why is the original important in the context of the story? Okay, it's important for this reason. Okay, and it's taken out in the live action. Does that make the story better? Is it more cohesive that way? Is it a yes or a no? Most of the time it was a no.
Yeah, it was almost every time it was a no.
Almost every time it was a no. Because I mean with the Harry Potter movies, like I would say The Prisoner of Azkaban was like one of the best Harry Potter movies. And it was directed really well. And there were some changes, but the changes were ultimately better. and the director really understood the assignment. Okay, and but then you had the fifth movie, and no, it was the fourth. Yeah, no, the fourth movie had a lot of changes, and the director was like, maybe we should can we burn down like the whole forest? Can we make the dragon like burn down the whole forest? And they were like, you can't just burn down the forbidden forest. We need it later.
The Forbidden Forest does come out later in the series. It's still
Yeah.
there.
So they were like, no, you can't burn it down. So again, does a change make it plausibly better? Yes or no? Yeah. So that's a good example because Harry Potter is such a big series. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I can sleep well tonight knowing that I'll never have to think about this
Freedom!
again. Even though I will inevitably
Freedom!
have to think about this again at some point in time. But at least I won't have to watch it again, and at least I won't have to make a podcast episode about it again.
Thank goodness. I never want to I just want this out of my head.
So,
I mean, it'll be on the internet forever now. But
yes. So now that we have taken everything, we have exhaustively talked about this poor adaptation of the live action One Piece. We can take it, we can move it aside, and we can move on to greener pastures. So, next time on the Pirate Odyssey, finally we can talk about something else, but unfortunately that thing is still not going to be the actual series. It is going to be the first movie. We're going to talk about the movies up until the point in the series that we've watched to. Let's go.
Let's go.
So next time, see you later, signing off.
Bye.